Hey rat bags, it's Jade with another look at all of the unreleased creatures in Grounded. I showed you guys the models in Unreal Engine 5. This is what they look like and it was pretty interesting. But today I'm going to go one better. I'm going to show you the animations of how they all move, as well as a peculiar type of ant. So do leave a like if you find this interesting. What do some of the cut creatures that may return in the future actually look and move like? And also a massive shout out to Samuel. He's the guy that actually got all of these animations up and running and just passed it on. I shared it to a few of the boys that have sorted out the wiki and have helped me in the past. So big shout out to Samuel for doing actually all the work. So straight off, this is the peculiar ant. Look at this bad boy. Imagine if some of the ants were this color in Grounded. What kind of ants could they be? As far as I know, they don't really exist, blue ants. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I actually do believe this was just a placeholder model. So this is what all the ants maybe looked like before they had a paint job and stuff like that. Although in the game files, there was something called a shiny ant or shiny ant head. And for ages we were speculating about what that would actually end up being. What could it be? Why was it called shiny? And it looks like this is what it was. This is what the file's been extracted from. So this is pretty much what all the ants were based on, and then changed slightly with different colors, maybe slightly different sizes and markings. But yeah, I figure that's the most interesting thing. You saw it in the thumbnail. Obviously it's probably the most baity. Could we have ants falling into Kool-Aid and come out looking blue? Could we find ants frozen? I know realistically they don't change color just because you've doused them in liquid or kept them cold, but for the purposes of the game, I've always wanted Grounded to do a little bit more with some creatures. We've got like the orc creatures with the transmitters on top of them, or receivers, but what if there was proper mashups of creatures, a bit more like the Mant, or maybe creatures that had more robotics in them as well? It'd be so cool to see more monsters, more bosses that had like, you know, metal, a spider with metal legs. There we go, the most baity one out of the way. Then we've got obviously the Earwig. It looks pretty cool. Obviously it does remind me a little bit of maybe like an ant or larvae, but it seems to have a few little attacks or stun attack animations on it as well, and that tail going up. There were some sounds as well, but I decided not to bother trying to match them up or anything. But you can see it walking around and stuff. So it looks really cool. I really like the idea of the Earwig. I do hope they add it in the future. And let's just hope that tail can do some sort of formidable attack, rather than maybe like shoot acid. Or I don't think they do anything like that. So how would that tail work? Like a scorpion maybe? Or is it simply just its stance? It wouldn't actually be able to arch over its back to actually do any damage. Or maybe turn around and get you. And yeah, there was meant to be the Earwig sword that we saw models of as well, and I showed you guys that ages ago, but that never got added. Then we've got the Silverfish. Obviously these guys just mooching about in damp, cold or wet areas. It's got a similar style in terms of raising its tail up in there, but you can see the tendrils trying to hit you. I can't imagine this would do too much damage, but since it never got added, we can only presume it would eventually be like a late game creature. But you like the look at this one as well, yeah. And it seems to sort of burrow down into the ground a little bit more, or if that's its stun animation before rising back up, and then obviously jumping as well, so you can see it. It's so creepy sometimes looking at these bugs. Where would these guys actually go? I think they'd have to be something brand new, like the turned over fridge or something like that, if we ever explore a new area. I can't really see where they'd fit, other than maybe the undershed. And this was meant to be used to make a shield. Now this is a world exclusive, the Water Striders. I don't think we've ever seen them actually move. I showed you guys a bunch of times over the years how they were just static models on lily pads, but we can actually see them moving around with their feelers. And yeah, not really doing too much though, like yeah, moving about. I imagine they would be passive, although I do remember one time someone said they could potentially be attacking on sight, but it didn't look to me like they'd be passive. And I guess if they're just going to be sitting on lily pads not doing much, then what's the point of them? Like, why do we need them? Originally, they were meant to have a pair of skates that are still in the game, models, that you could use to hopefully get across water, but they never actually worked. Then Chunky Boy himself, a lot of you guys said in the last video that it did look a bit odd, that the tail was way too short. Now, as far as I'm aware, it was a different type of dragon bearded lizard. It wasn't exactly that. Vaguely someone remember saying or showing me something a while ago that there was in fact a shorter version of this. But yeah, obviously it's scale, guys. None of the creatures in Grounded I don't think are 100% correct in terms of scale or 100% what they look like, but as close as they can get it with a little bit of artistic license. So regardless, this lizard boss would have had obviously some of the ant lines as its kind of mobs, and it would burrow into the ground, and then the ant lines would come out, and then you'd have to fight them before then the lizard emerged and you'd have to fight it again. So we have seen small bits of gameplay of this before, but this is pretty cool seeing it in the actual engine shot. Obviously slowed down a little bit, and you can see how it would burrow down into the ground. And yeah, the hypothesis has always been it would be on the place where the sandcastle is, and it'd be something underneath there, as there was a rock, or there seemed to be some sort of tunnel that the devs ended up blocking off a long time ago. We've seen so many shots of the arenas and stuff underneath, but that all probably would have been part of a DLC that got cancelled, or decided not to make it as a paid DLC, but actually make it as a free update maybe in the future. And then yeah, we've got the lance and the actual lizard armour that would have been made from them parts, if it does ever come into the game maybe. A two-handed lance, a spear. And then the Ant Queen itself, something I've never seen gameplay of, I've only ever seen screenshots, and it's looking pretty ferocious the way it moves and chucks things around. Again, this would have had minions. At first it was black ants, then it seemingly might have been changed to obviously fire ants. Shout out to someone in comments that said actually fire ants have wings, so if it was going to be a fire ant, it definitely wasn't in the right ballpark. Like I said, I understand some artistic license, but that would be something pretty obvious you'd think they would know. So maybe it wasn't ever a fire ant. Could it actually just be a regular red ant, a normal ant? It definitely does seem to have a bit more of an orange fiery tint to it. I've heard of fire ants before, but yeah, apparently that's what someone said in the comments. So again, hypothesis was it should have been in the fire ant cave. There definitely is some tunnels and places that got blocked off, where just empty tunnels that lead nowhere, blocked off by a huge boulder. Pretty much where you go and get the swole head, or where you see the swole head in the actual big massive ditch. A rock would have lifted, it would have came to fight you, but you might not have necessarily been able to kill it, otherwise it might have gone back and the rock would have come in, or something along them lines. And then we've got the armor pieces for them as well, and obviously these were the in-game shots I showed you ages and ages ago, but recently I did show you much better models of this. So go and look out for that video in case you haven't seen it, detailing more. And we've got all of these pictures, I do believe, hidden in our grounded content chat. I'll pop a link to my Discord in the comment section, and yeah, go and check out that previous video where we took a look at the bosses. So you can see the difference between what it looked like from originally being designed to what it maybe potentially could look like now it's had a bit more colour and art added to it. And it does still raise the question, if we had a fire ant queen, why don't we have a black ant queen or normal ant queen? Have they died? Then who's laying the eggs? As always, bear in mind, there's no promises that any of this content will actually ever come to Grounded. It was not added as 1.0 for a reason. Although we have seen WASP return, it doesn't mean the rest will. But I think a lot of this will. I think this is what we're going to see in terms of updates for the next year. I don't think this is all going to be added at once. I think we will get a selection of these like they've done with the WASPs. And we just get like one boss, one new small area to go and explore. And finishing off with our good friend, the Leech. Now, we'd seen these in gameplay again. Showed you in test world, lots of videos of this, but just looking at them on their own in isolation, they do look pretty gruesome. I don't think I would want to face off against a bunch of these attacking me. I can see why they maybe decide just to go with water flea instead, like the spiny ones. So cool stuff. Big shout out to Samuel once more, and a big shout out to Spicy for helping getting this stuff to me too. Let me know what you desperately want to see added the most. Why do you think some of this was cut? And could you see any other creatures come to Grounded? And I'll see you rat bags for more soon. Bye bye.